quiet gays? Where are the quiet gays supposed to go?
Okay, welcome back everyone to Lesbian Book Club. We are covering Vessel today, book one of the Bonded Earth series by Samantha Jo. And I am so excited to talk about this book. I absolutely loved it. Haylie, what were your first thoughts?
I am obsessed. I can't wait for the other two books of this series to come out.
No.
This was everything that I wanted out of. Okay, you know the books that you would read. Okay, this is this is where I was reading these in like junior high was when these books were coming out for me, but like The Hunger Games, Divergent, The Maze Runner, those sort of books were junior high era for me. I don't know when those were coming out for you.
End of high school, college, but I was obsessed with them. I love them. I read them. I did the audiobooks. I read them so many times. I'm still obsessed with Hunger Games. So
yeah, so good. And this is what that felt like to me. It was same vibes. It was like around the same caliber to me, except it had sapphic love in it and it was natural and it felt so good to read. And I am just obsessed. Samantha Jo, you nailed it. And it really took me by surprise because I didn't know what to expect when I walked in to this book. And I was so pleasantly surprised.
yeah, I totally agree. And I'm so glad Samantha reached out to us and sent us 2 copies of this book. Did you notice that yours is gold and mine? So our pages, for those of you who can't see, obviously, this is a audio platform, but like our books are, first of all, beautiful, and my pages, you know how you have like gold gilded pages on like Bibles and stuff? Mine are teal, yours are gold. Did you figure out what that like represented and what that was?
The mana?
Yeah, but yours was Rosalind's color and mine was Kaylin's color.
Oh my gosh. I was just noticing as you were holding it up that it was blue, and I was like, wait a second. These are different.
Yeah.
That's so wild. That's such a cool touch.
Isn't that so neat? Okay, but wait, hold on. Do you say Kaylin or Callan?
I actually wanted to bring this up too because the entire time that I was reading it as Kaylin.
I was too. Okay, but isn't the flower that she's like named after, isn't it calendula?
I was reading it in my head as calendula. But I don't know how you actually say it. I think we need to consult Google.
I'm doing it right now. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. Here we go.
Calendula.
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 Okay, one more time.
Calendula.
Calendula. So it is a soft A, so it would make it Callan.
Yeah.
Ask Samantha.
Yeah. So that was the question I wanted to raise you too, was would you do it Callan because of how it was shortened, or Kaylin?
I in my head was saying Kaylin. This is why I like audiobooks, because I don't have to do this thinking. But yeah, I have, and you know what I wasn't expecting was for the writing to be so good. Like literally it was amazing. I thought they were like 2 of some of the most beautiful passages that I've ever read. I underlined them and everything. So when we get to kind of those parts of the story, I'll read them.
Dude, my book looks like my AP high school AP Lit and Ling books where it's like sticky noted to the end of the earth here.
So funny that you say that, because while I was reading, I was like underlining, and my girlfriend was like, "Do you want some sticky notes?" And I was like, actually, let me tell you my philosophy about underlining in books. My philosophy, because this is literally what I told to her, because I was like, no, I don't want sticky notes. I want to write in my books. And I want to write in my books because if, let's say, I ever donate them or like my kids read them, I know this is wishful thinking, but like I want people to be like, oh, the person who read this before me thought this was important. And she was like, okay, I didn't need that much information. No sticky notes. was like,
That's
no,
funny.
thank you, but thank you. But yeah, I loved this book. I'm excited. I think Samantha Jo will talk to us. I think so, right? Like we should definitely get her on.
I sure hope so.
I want to
I
know.
really desperately, I say this every time, but I really desperately want this to get adapted into movies now too.
Oh, I was thinking about that too, and I was like, how cool would the
Yeah.
graphics be?
Yeah, except it has to be done well. If we get shitty graphics of Mana and bad fighting, then this will be so painful to watch. But like if they do it well, yes.
I know, I know. Oh, so yeah, I know. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, every time we come on here, we're like, we need to be a movie. But this one would be so good.
Oh
Especially
my
with like
gosh.
I loved how so at first I was confused when so okay, let's just get into it because I'll talk about my confusion at one point. It all made sense and I loved how it all made sense.
Mhm.
And that was when the name changes.
Yeah.
Because so this book opens up with this young girl, she's about 12, basically being kidnapped and like taken through in a carriage in the forest to like by this big giant guy, and you're just like, what is happening here? And her name's Amelia. And to set the scene, I believe we are post-apocalyptic about 600 years in the future from when the apocalypse happened. Because they in the book it talks about a time where there was technology and kind of like talking about our time currently and how like it didn't work out very well. And so now I think we're in the future, but it's almost like a medieval time, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. Like technology wise, food wise, agriculture is how we're making food. There aren't, factories and things like that. So just to set the stage. And then after we real like there's just a lot of sci-fi stuff that happens in the very beginning with this thing called mana and they're consecrated. You want to talk a little bit about that because I feel like you might have a better grasp on this stuff.
Yeah, so I think it's important to note that the inception of this apocalypse was that an asteroid or a comet hit the Earth.
Yes.
And it hit Earth in several different places, and one was in the Appalachian Mountains, which is where this story takes place. And then another one hit over in Europe. And that really doesn't super come into play in this book, but it is mentioned at one point.
Couple.
Yeah. And so we're set in the Appalachian Mountains, and this mana that is it's the essence of the universe that was left behind by the asteroid that hit Earth. And it's like this magical essence that when living organisms on Earth absorb it, they take on power of the mana, and it like lives within them.
Yeah,
It's kind of like its own being within them.
it's like a life force was what I was kind of thinking. And I thought it was really cool when talking about mana. The only other time I've heard this word is in the Bible. When
Oh, it's somewhere else? It's not like
yeah,
made up?
no, mana is like was we think it was like a bread substance that fell from the heavens to feed the people.
Mm.
So I was like, interesting. Again, I want to talk to Samantha Jo about it because I'm wondering if that's where she got the idea. It was kind of like a life force. Like, you know how it says like man will not live on bread alone, but like the manna, let me look it up. The manna is what like God used to feed the people when there was no food.
That's so interesting to know because that also makes sense with our ritual workers and the field blessings and all of that.
Yeah, see, it says in the Bible, manna is a miraculous supernatural food substance that God provided for the Israelites during their 40-year journey through the desert after the Exodus.
Wow.
So for that to come from like a meteorite to hit the ground, like, and then feed the people, like the blessings and everything, like that's where my head was when reading about this. And I feel like your mind is blown.
It is. Okay, I think that this book was written so intelligently because
I
there's so many
know.
pieces of this that are references
Mhm.
to world history and also I think cultural references
Yeah.
and commentary.
Yeah.
And it's just really interesting to read it through that lens. And so I am excited to talk about it like that as we go through the book. So knowing that just
Yes.
makes it that much better. Wow. Okay, I love this.
I know. I was really excited when I was like, manna, I know what manna is, but the way that she's using it in this book is really interesting. Is like, because they have their consecration thing like in the water and it's like absorbed through there and it almost has this like life of its own where it like protects her sometimes, but also sometimes doesn't, but also connects her to other vessels. And I don't know, I found it really intelligent, like you said.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay. Yeah, so we have vessels and we have regular people. And there's this distinction that kind of defines how society works. And vessels are people that are able to carry mana and have mana within them, and they're born this way usually, or like they're able to be identified as people who have the ability to carry mana, and then they are then trained and consecrated and all of that. But then there are regular people who just don't have the ability to hold mana. And the, I guess, unspoken, unwritten laws of society are that the first order, which are the men who hold mana, and the third order, who are the women who hold mana. And so the first order, they're called scholar workers.
yeah,
And then the third order are ritual workers.
right.
Um, they are like the upper caste or class of society, and they are regarded as very, I mean, they all have titles, right? You must adjust them with their title. You have to be very respectful to them. They're treated much better. They receive access to finer foods and wines and housing and all of this. They also sacrifice, their pieces of themselves and their mana and their bodies and their well-being for everyone else in order to like keep the good of society going, if they are good people and doing what they're supposed to be doing and upholding their vows to their orders.
Right. They're supposed to be protectors. They're supposed
Right.
to be the ones who altruistically wield their mana or help the women who hold mana, the third order, the ritual workers. They're supposed to protect them and keep them safe in order to do their ritual work, like blessing the food or healing people, things like that. And what we see in this book is a brother, quote unquote, brother of the first order, Brother Stokely, kind of breaking away from his vows and using it in a really dark, self-serving way. And I'm interested in the next couple books to learn more about. We have this like subgroup of vessels that are also kind of doing that, kind of like a rebellion, it seems like, which is really interesting where Jin is from. And it almost seems like an archaic version of society where I think the mana workers had like all the power and then the regular people revolted. That's like kind of where I see this going, but I'm not quite sure. But yeah, this book takes a very dark turn. We will definitely put in the show notes trigger warning because there's a lot of triggers. I feel like it's
Yeah. I kind of see that group as like, it's not the same context because this isn't racial, but they feel like the same sort of values as like this world's KKK.
yeah, like we're the vessels, we're supposed to be in charge, we have all the power and everyone should be subjugated underneath us.
Yeah, and they have this view of like the women are supposed to be
Submissive.
yeah, like they defer to the men and they're very violent. The whole group is like their whole thing is based around violence, and they just they believe themselves to be better than everybody. So that's their value system. And this is where Brother Stokely is that's where his value system also lies. But his thing is that he doesn't want to give up the privilege and the power that comes with being in the First Order. So he doesn't associate with this group that's not recognized by the orders.
Right.
And so he keeps his title, but he like secretly associates with this group and follows their values.
Right. Now, Brother Stokely is, I kind of call them like handlers. He's Kaylin's, our main character's handler. So what we later find out, and I'm hoping you guys all read the book, is that Reverend Kaylin, is it Reverend? It's Reverend, right?
Revered.
Was I reading that fucking wrong the entire time? I'm telling you, oh my God, I need audiobooks. Okay, so Kaylin, whose name is Calendula, and they pick their own names, which we found out, and there's a really cute backstory to how she got her name, but we're gonna get there later. Brother Stokely is her handler. There's a First Order brother that always goes like in bonds with a Third Order ritual worker, and then they travel around the realm together doing their work, right? And Brother Stokely is Kaylin's handler, but he is horrible to her. And Kaylin, we find out later, is actually Amelia, the 12-year-old little girl from the first opening chapters. And what's interesting about Amelia's story is, first of all, her brother fucking turned her in and was like, yeah, like I'm going to get some money for this and I'm going to, turn you in. Because what happens is vessels, when they're discovered by these people called seekers, they are ripped from their family. They are basically forced to be a vessel because of the power that they hold, which we can talk about the dynamics of that, but for sake of time, we'll just skip over that. But she is taken at 12. And the thing is about her is something that happened that's very different than most other vessels, is she was bonded to her First Order partner, Brother Stokely, at 12. And that is not supposed to happen because that is a child and they're not supposed to bond. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Does that mean that they had sex? What's the bonding ceremony? Like
the bonding ceremony, I think this is never clear. It's never made clear. In this case, between these two people, I believe that what immediately followed the bonding ceremony was, of course, him raping her.
Yes.
However, during the bonding ceremony itself, I believe that is what was happening while he was consecrating her under the water with the stone. Where,
with the stone, right? The consecration.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. But it does seem like it's a very intimate experience and one that shouldn't happen with a 12-year-old girl.
No.
Because later, these vessels, once they're consecrated, they go to a school for girls where they're taught how to wield their power and wield their mana and use it for the good of society. And Amelia, later Kaylin, she is not treated well at the school by the other girls because she already had a bonded partner, and that made her othered by the other girls. So yeah, poor Kaylin just has a horrible time.
Yeah. You know what was really interesting to me too about this whole situation, how she even got here, is she was recognized as being different by her brother, obviously, and her family knew that she was different. Like, this was not a secret, but they were trying to hide it, and her parents were very they had a big what's the word I'm looking for? They had a big aversion to how she was different, and they called it an unnatural abomination. And this was one of those things that to me felt like a metaphor, because this was, I mean, she's like in these rural, isolated mountains in Appalachia.
Right.
Her parents see her as different than everybody else and say that it's an unnatural abomination and that she cannot act on this thing. And that's why they've hidden her from the seekers who have come before. And I mean, because she didn't go with a real seeker, that's how she ends up getting kidnapped by this fake seeker who takes her and sticks her with Brother Stokely. But I mean, this feels like a metaphor for like familial homophobia and how a lot of queer children get treated by their families and are not accepted in this like fear around otherness.
Yeah, I picked up on that too, but I also thought it was a lot more nuanced than that, because they did hide her and they did almost protect her, right? It's like, yes, they knew she was different, but they also didn't want to give her up to the seekers. Like, they had this backwards attitude towards vessels, right? But at the same time, they were trying to keep them with her. And I think that that's like what a lot of families, especially let's say religious families, and like in our country, let's say Christian, more heavily Christian families do, when they're smacked in the face with somebody that they love that goes against their values. And it's kind of like a bit of an existential crisis of, wait, but this is my daughter and she's different. And we're supposed to hate these people, but she's my daughter, so I'm going to protect her. You know, I that's how I viewed them, not giving her up to the seekers, because I would have thought that if they were homophobic, or, you know, obviously I'm using that as the metaphor, but, you know, if they didn't like these seekers, they would have just given her up and like, go, right? But her parents didn't do that. Her brother did. And he felt terrible about it, but he did it. But I don't know. I felt like it was I don't know what the word is. I felt like they were having trouble dealing with their thoughts on it.
Yeah.
You know, because why would they protect her from the seekers?
Mm-hmm.
That was my thought going into it, but I'm not quite sure. And I would love to get her parents' take in the next couple books, you know, like, does she get to have like a homecoming and her parents being like, we missed you forever, like kind of like not a prodigal son coming home, but like, you know, we punished your brother and we missed you and we've been looking for you type situation, you know?
Yeah.
I would love that for her.
Yeah. What's also interesting about the situation, though, is that, like, from the real seekers, there was nothing to protect her from, you know? Like, other than their own, like, they, of course, have their own judgments about them and their own, like, predetermined ways of thinking about these people that, like, they think the seekers are bad. But, like, had the real seekers been the ones to take her, she would have safely gone to school. She would have safely gone through the processes and been put with somebody who was like a legit order member and lived out a life of you know, serving with somebody who is also actually serving.
Yeah, but they never get to see their family again.
That's not true. Her Rosalind sees her family.
No, but they said that like a lot of times it's the last time that they get to see their family. So that's why I thought that the parents were protecting her, because they didn't want to lose her. Especially from like a rural, if she's traveling around, like I remember a specific quote that said, like, a lot of times this is the last time when they go off from their seekers that they don't get to see their family ever again. So that was my thought, but maybe I misread something. We'll ask Samantha. We're gonna get
yeah. Okay.
Okay, so let's actually get into the story. What's happening? So we open up with that little part about little 12-year-old Amelia. We skip right into present day, where Kaylin and Stokely are doing their ritual. They've gone to this rural town. they're going to do a seed blessing. So where Kaylin has to open herself up, open her mana, basically put it into the ground to like harvest, not harvest, that's the wrong word, but like germinate, I guess, and like give life to the seeds so that they will grow food. And she has a lot of apprehension about this. We see this girl as like she almost seems very meek and like weak and scared of her power. Um, and she goes through a lot of character development, I feel like, in this book.
Oh, she does, absolutely. You know what, about her first seed blessing, something that I really loved about it was how she talks about she's giving this gift to these people, and she really goes into how they do not understand what they're asking of her, and how it is so taxing on her. Like, we see that it's incredibly painful. It's so draining. Her mana is screaming. Her body hurts. She's crying after. Like, it's really traumatic and awful for her. But she hides this from these people as they're celebrating and like exalting her, because for her this is a painful gift, but it's intentionally given without guilt. Right. Because she cannot give to them and then guilt them for it. Mm-hmm. And that's because that's not what a gift is. A gift is not given with guilt. And they don't know. These people cannot possibly know what it is that they're asking of her to do, because they don't have that. They can't ever have that experience. Right. And she isn't willing to share that with them either. Like, she's not going to give them that vulnerability. And so I just thought that was so good of her, and such a true thing of what a gift is.
Yeah, and she doesn't want to shatter their worldview, right? If something that these people revere and need to survive and think is like this beautiful gift that these people sacrifice to do for them, and then they throw them parties, they take care of them, like the town really like tries to reciprocate. If they knew the pain it was causing, it's not like they could ask her to stop, but then it would be tinged with guilt every time the vessel came, right? And it doesn't seem like this is the way it is for most vessels. It seems like it only is like this for Kaylin. You know, it seems like other vessels are able to wield their mana in a way that is like not painful. And I think that has to do with her experience with Brother Stokely and like what he has done to her.
Yeah, I agree. And somebody sees her and the pain she's in at this field blessing. And it's a young girl named Nell. And Kaylin has noticed Nell a little bit before this point, because she's felt a tug. And something about the mana is that if you are bonded to somebody, you feel a tug towards them. You can't get too far without, feeling a tug in the direction that they are.
Yeah.
And so that's very odd that she's feeling a tug towards Nell. And Nell is just a regular girl. She hasn't been consecrated. She's not a vessel as far as she knows.
Can I say something? I just looked it up because I was like, there has to be a meaning to this name. Because, we call her Nell, but her name is Avenel. And I just looked it up, and it means to breathe, to live, and also river. I know. So
smart.
I know. I was like thinking about it just now, because I was like, after reading the book, I was like, this name is so interesting. Like, literally, I was thinking this while you were talking about her, being like, I wonder what that means. And that's what it means. So river is really important. Life, breath. It's very interesting.
Wow. Oh, there's so many clues.
I know. Did Taylor Swift write this? Okay, sorry, continue. So yes, sorry. Continue.
Yeah. Well, so Kaylin is not the only one to notice Nell. Stokely also does, and Kaylin warns Nell to stay far away from Stokely. So that's kind of all we have of Nell at the moment. And
Nell is very curious. She seeks out Kaylin. God damn, we're just have to pick one. I'm going Kaylin. Going with Kaylin. She seeks out Kaylin at this party, and that the town is throwing for her, and is like, "Why did that hurt? Like all our life, we've been told that this is, and Kaylin is trying not to talk to her because Kaylin recognizes like, oh shit, this girl is probably a vessel, and I don't want her going down the same fate I am. I don't want her found by Stokely. Like this is not the life I want for her." But finally pulls her in, talks to her, and has this like really sad, tragic, but beautiful conversation with her about what's kind of going on and how she needs to keep herself safe.
yeah, and she realizes that Nell could see and hear her mana, which is not normal.
No, and the only other times we get that, so we know, like, we find out that Kaylin can kind of interact with her mana, kind of like an inner voice, but also that the way the mana works is you can kind of hear other people sometimes. I don't know if I'm getting that right, but like it seems like Nell has tapped into that as well, which is like Kaylin doesn't even understand that. So
yeah,
it's really interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So Nell is warned to stay far away from Stokely. Don't get near him. It won't be good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we also start to find out a little bit more about Stokely as we get a little bit further in here, and we find out that Kaylin is not his first partner, and he has actually gone through 2 partners before her. And one of them he burned out, and another one he made have an accident, aka he murdered her. Both of which he like pretty much used all of their powers up first, which that's what burned out means. And
extracted all of their mana out of their body. And I think for these vessels, like that is also their life force.
Mm-hmm.
So once their mana is gone, we see that like they kind of become a bit of a shell, it seems like.
Yeah.
And to think about it, like to have and wield all that power and then to be rendered powerless would leave somebody to be a shell of a person.
Yeah. And this really got my wheels turning because the purpose of the First Order is to protect the Third Order. Right? And here, for Stokely, these powerful women are expendable for the use of a man. Mm-hmm. Which this felt, again, like a big mirror held up to our world. And it just really got me thinking of like this statement that I saw somewhere of somebody was asking a man like, okay, well, I don't remember exactly how they phrased it, but basically, what would your daughter be safer if there were no men? And the guy was like, well, who would protect her? And she said, from who?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly what you're talking about. That one is always me. It's like, yeah, he was like, I'm supposed to protect her. They said like, are men dangerous? And he was like, yeah, like some men are, but like I'm supposed to protect her. And the interviewer is like, okay, from who? And it's like, oh, like from men. Exactly. Right. And then there's another one that I've seen that, this guy is like trying to come for this woman being like, men do all the dangerous jobs. Men have the higher rates of suicide and men this and men that. And she just looks at him and says, and who set that system up?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you want to talk about how oppressed you are as a man? Who set that system up? Not us. Take it up with the men. Like, and I feel like, yeah, this book does do an interesting metaphorical explanation of gender roles and gender power dynamics. through these first order, third order situations. And we
Yeah.
do see it play out really beautifully in a different third order, first order relationship, which would be, we'll get into Rosalind and Frederick.
Yeah.
And even Knox, you know, as a brother of the first order, he's not a bonded pair to Rosalind like Frederick is, but I really thought those juxtapositions of relationships were really key to understanding how things were supposed to work and how one has gone so wrong.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, there's these three very, very powerful women that have been brought to, two of them brought to nothing, and one of them has been brought to just about rock bottom.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
very, very weak.
Yeah, let's talk about what happened after the seed blessing, after the conversation that Kaylin has with Knox. We, you know, go back to Stokely and Kaylin's room, and there's this really big fight that happens. So Stokely is, you know, and trigger warning here, this does get really graphic. Like, he's a serial rapist. He rapes Kaylin, like, it seems like every single night. And he does it under the guise of, like, submission and, like
it's her duty.
It's her duty because it's something for the mana. It's kind of, I was, like, not confused. I just don't remember because it was kind of like a traumatic reading of what was going on. And she finally gets up the nerve to be like, no, because he's like, get undressed and get in bed. And she is like, no, like, I don't want to do this anymore. And she is, you know, if you think about it, she's been with him for 8 years, and this has been happening to her the entire time. And not only is she being raped, but she's being beaten within like an inch of her life a lot of these times. And then, you know, Stokely just has this prior vessel who's part of this like rebellious group that we were talking about earlier come in and like heal her. Even though, like, yeah, physically she's being healed, but like the mental damage that's been done, it's like that is not healable.
And not even fully heal her, but just heal the visible parts so nobody else knows. But like leave everything that can be covered so she's still in pain.
Right. Or they'll like leave a black lip so that she remembers, you know, next time not to talk back. Right. And it's really tragic. And so this happens and she fights back and she's like, no, no, no. He ends up completing his goal of raping her and beating her. And we see her mana start to work in a way that we haven't seen previously. It starts to almost talk to her. And she hears this voice saying, like, don't give up, like, run. You know, I forget exactly what the voice said, but she recognizes it as a familiar voice. And we later find out, like, whose voice that is. And it's another vessel, her best friend all through Vessel school. Her name's Rosalind. She calls her Rosie. And after this happens, we cut to Rosalind, and we find out a little bit more about her.
Yeah. I love her too.
And you had Rosalind's book. I had Kaylin's book, and you had Rosalind's book.
Yeah.
I only realized that because Samantha Jo, she sent I got the copies to my address, and they sat on my shelf forever, and they sat like this, right? Like with the pages side towards me. So I remember seeing the gold and the green like so much, and I was like, that's really cool, blah blah blah. And then only towards the end of the book when I was reading was like, oh my god, like you got Rosie's book and I got Kaylin's book, and I just thought I just think it was so cute.
It is cool. You know what else is cool that I just remembered?
Yeah.
Speaking of Rosalind, is that I think that Samantha Jo made some of our most powerful characters people of color.
I know that Rosalind had cinnamon hair.
She also had, let me see, why did I think this? she had honey-colored skin, and
Oh, maybe
it
Latina.
says something else. Yeah, maybe Latina, maybe Native. Um, and then the arch son, who is
Oh, yeah.
there's the arch family is like the royalty of the orders, from what
Right.
I am gathering
They live in
here.
the capital. Rosalind is the vessel to like the Arch Mother, which I
Yes,
will talk about her.
yes. And the arch family is black.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
did catch that. I forgot and I did catch it and I was like, oh, love that.
yeah.
Um,
I thought that was good because usually, like, everybody in these is just like either nondescript
right. So
or
deep,
white.
right. And when they're nondescript, I feel like we default to just in our heads thinking of them as white.
Yeah. But here, the most Rosalind is known as one of the most powerful vessels in the entire society.
Yeah.
She's supposed to take over for the head of the order once the head of order passes on.
Right.
And she obviously is given one of the greatest responsibilities in taking care of the Archmother. And then
Fields Mana herself, which I think is really interesting because I don't think she's a vessel. So we do see that some people who are not vessels can wield mana. We see that in the strays too, who don't have enough mana, but they have enough to kind of work some, like it's magic. We can call it magic, you know. But what I also think is really cool is all the different facets that mana has because so the Archmother, she goes through these like episodes with her mana where it almost seems like it's too strong. It's like where she's fully open, it feels like, and it's like it's just way too strong for her. She has visions, hallucinations, like all these things. And one of the parts that I underlined was um, when Rosalind would use her mana to kind of control and help the Archmother get through her episodes, like there was like a song that her mana would sing to her. And I thought that was really beautiful because it said she had no real control over the musical aura of her mana, but it did not always sing for the people she healed. It always sang for Gwendolyn. And Gwendolyn is the Archmother. And I just thought that was so beautiful to be like, to me, it spoke kind of to the like purity of the Archmother of like, oh, like the mana loves her. And it always sang for her. And I just thought that was beautiful. And I hope there's more of Gwendolyn in the next couple books because we do see Gwendolyn later, like tells Rosalind to like go to Kaylin, like don't worry about her. Like it seems like she's a very caring woman.
Yeah. It also felt like a commentary on maybe mental illness and aging. Like
Yeah.
it almost mirrored the way that her episodes happen, bipolar or perhaps like schizophrenic episodes
I caught that
and or dementia. And Gwendolyn is still handled with such care and grace and kindness and respect, which is how people with mental illness and who are getting older should be handled. And unfortunately, that's just not always the case. And we see that as people are treated poorly and suffer in our streets and in homes and everything. And she is recognized as being unchanged in who she is, but being in a different place.
Yeah. And she's still listened to and revered.
Yes.
I think that's beautiful. They're like, oh, she's just going through one of her episodes. I'm going to help her through it. And then we're going to come back. So we find out that Rosalind, the night that Kaylin is horrifically attacked by Brother Stokely, had a dream and that this has happened before. And she had a dream that Kaylin was being attacked. And it wasn't a dream, it was more like a vision. And I do think Rosalind saw what was going on as it was happening. And
Mhm.
that voice, we find out, was Rosalind's voice telling Kaylin to run, to get away.
Yeah. Which, what a deep connection between the two of them for that to be possible.
Oh, yeah. Huge, huge, deep connection. And you're like, oh, interesting. Like, I wonder how this happened. What's the meaning behind this? Obviously, again, this is lesbian book club. So you don't have to make too big of a leap here. And Rosalind is obviously sent into a panic. And her first order protector is Brother Frederick. And one of the first things we learn is that they have never had sex. He has never treated her in any horrible way. They have a very mutual respect for one another. And he listens to her, she listens to him, he protects her. They sleep in separate beds. It's how it is supposed to work. And she goes, and then we have another brother who is kind of the I don't know exactly how this works. Maybe you could help me. He's like what Rosalind is for the mother for the son.
Yeah.
But the son is a mana worker. So is he going to become part of the first order? But why does
That's
he
a
have
great
like
question.
but why does he have a protector? Is it not as gendered? Is it different when it comes to royalty? Maybe it's like a secret service type situation. I'm not quite sure how this works.
I don't know either.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad we're both confused. Um, but she goes, Knox. This is Brother Knox, and he is amazing. I love this. I love this little guy.
He's so earnest.
He really is. Like he really like. He asked questions in earnest that sound sarcastic, but he's like, no, I'm really like, I don't know. And sometimes I feel like that's how I come off because like I know that like I'm intelligent, but sometimes I really just don't understand what is going on. And I'm asking a question and people think that I'm like being an asshole. And I'm like, no, I really don't know what we're talking about here. Please tell me. And I feel like that's Knox. But Rosalind goes to Knox and is like, you have to go to Kaylin. I know where she is. You have to go to her. She's in trouble. And he's like, how do you know that? And she's like, trust me, like I have these visions. And he believes her. You know, the whole believe women thing, like he believes her. And he's like, okay, I would love to do this, but the arch son and I are supposed to be going on this mission to like kind of like what the queen used to do, where she'd go visit all her little territories around the world and like say, hi, I love you, blah, 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 right? And that's kind of what he's doing. And he's going to go to his favorite ones. He's been planning it for months now. And it seems like he's kind of very anal and like not easily, doesn't like to have his plans changed. He's probably a Capricorn. And Knox is like, so you want me to go to the Archson and tell him that we need to go east when we really need to go west because your friend is like in trouble. And she's like, exactly. And so he's like, you know what? I mean, I'll pitch it to him. And so they go together. Well, Knox says, you'll pitch it to him. And so they go together to the Archson. And I was like, hey, like, the thing about the Archson is he does have they describe him as kind of naive, but like also a big believer in what's right and how things should be. Again, this guy is probably a Capricorn, and I love that for him because he is swayed by a good argument that is for the common good. And what they basically tell him is like, this vessel is being mistreated by a brother of the First Order. And I can't prove it to you, but I know it's true. And we, as like the royalty, as First Order members, like it is our duty to protect. And he's like, you know what? I'm in. And the adventure starts.
Yeah. Amen for that. Way to go, Augustus.
Yeah.
You know what I was so stressed out about is Augustus never reunited with the group at the end, and I'm like, hello, where is he?
He's chilling.
Aren't we worried about him a little bit?
I think they said that he was like safe and he was in a city, you know, close by because he was tracking Knox.
Yeah.
Right. So I think he was just like a couple cities behind every time, but they had to keep him safe, obviously, because he is the Archson.
Yeah.
He was going to really be in the fray, but I love
Yeah.
people. You know, and where was it? it was somewhere where they described Frederick as like a fairy. And I'm like, Frederick is like a gay boy. And I was like, I love that. That's so cute. The lesbian and the gay boy, Rosalind and Frederick, like best friends, protecting each other. I loved it.
A
Um,
lavender bond.
yeah, no, literally. So right. Like maybe like a little lavender haze type situation.
Yeah.
No, yeah. So they take off to find Kaylin. Now, Kaylin, so Knox gets to where they are. They have tracked them, they know where they are. Knox gets there, and he is expecting to be met with gratuity from Kaylin. Like, oh my God, thank you for coming to rescue me. And she's like, leave me the fuck alone. I have my own plan. Get away from me.
Yeah.
And I was
What
like,
zodiac do you think she is?
Kaylin?
Yeah.
Pisces.
You think so?
I don't know. I haven't put any thought into it. The only reason I say Pisces is because she's very connected mystically to like her mana, right? And Pisces is the 12th sign of the zodiac. They're very like connected mystically to death, to rebirth, to things like that. And she's also like kind of perceived as weak, and but she's really not, right? But she has to learn that. I definitely think she's some type of water sign, whether that's Cancer, Pisces, or Scorpio. I don't think Scorpio. I think Rosalind's more of a Scorpio or like an Aries sitch over there.
Mm-hmm.
But like Caitlin to me is not an earth sign. She's not a fire sign. She's not an air sign. She has to be a water sign.
Interesting.
Yeah, why? What did you think? Did you have a thought?
I mean, I'm not as well versed as you, but like my gut tells me she's very like fiery and angry and like stubborn to me. So I would have put her as either fire or earth.
Okay, okay. I mean, I can see that, but I also think it took her 8 years to get to the fire, stubborn. No, you won't do this to me anymore.
True.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think Rosalind's a lot more fire than Kaylin.
Mm-hmm.
Kaylin finally got enough to put it together and be like, I'm going to do this. Like the resoluteness, she finally got there 8 years later when she was pushed to her breaking point. To me, an earth sign is going to cut that shit off at the beginning and be
True.
like, the fuck you think you're doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, good question. I like it. I kind of think Rosalind's more, Rosalind could be a Leo because she likes having the attention on her. She likes
Yeah.
the power of being with the royal family, like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But she's very fiery and she definitely protects the one she loves, and that's a very Leo-esque quality. So anyway, Knox is met with Kaylin basically being like, fuck you, leave me alone. And to me, I was actually blown away. I was like, what the fuck, Kaylin? Like, go with him. What are you doing? Like, but we didn't know, and we also get a little insight into Rosalind and Kaylin's history here, where Kaylin says to Knox, because Kaylin knows that Knox was sent by Rosie. And we see her being like, she doesn't care about me. She's ignored me. Why would she come now? She should have come 3 years ago, and you're like, oh, like there's a lot of history here. But Caitlin is very averse to Knox's help. And Knox is like, poor sweet Knox is like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah. So then Kaylin takes off into the woods, escapes, and this part, she closes off her mana because she knows
Kennedy's at the door, so keep going, but
okay.
She closes off her man.
So she runs off into the woods and she is running away from Stokely and closes off her mana because she knows that because he is her bonded partner, he can follow her mana trail using their consecration stone. So she closes it up so that she cannot be recognized. And this to me felt like hiding her mana was like having to hide her sexuality. Like that felt such a direct metaphor to me again. And in this passage, it says that her entire identity would have to change before she arrived at this border. That was her final destination, and that she would have to hope that nobody there was sensitive enough to pick up on her mana, her identity, and that she had grown very adept at remaining closed off for long periods of time, and that just and that it had become like a phantom tickling in her belly, and that seemed just so on the nose for what somebody in the closet would be experiencing to me.
To like be safe too.
Yeah.
Like trying to hide it to be safe.
Yeah. So I thought that was just like such an interesting tool to use.
Yeah.
Mana to mirror that.
Yeah. And here we see where Kaylin is really smart. She's like sets traps, which I think is really cool. So she runs off into the woods and she leaves these like, I kind of feel like it was like a trail like of mana behind her, like a sparkly trail. That's how I pictured it. And, you know, she set these traps because people can track them by following these trails if they're mana workers, right? So Knox is following this trail, but she doesn't want Stokely to follow it. And Stokely, she poisoned his wine. And so trying to give her like, you know, a bit of a head start. But she takes off, Knox is following her, and he follows one of the traps to like her cat or whatever. So Knox also realizes in this moment how smart Kaylin is and has to then track her. And now she's got a head start, but he promised Rosalind that he was going to keep her safe and that he was going to bring her back to her. And so he tries to find Kaylin. And I forget how he ends up finding her.
Once he locates her real trail.
Yes.
She's sleeping and he ends up catching up to her. And this is when, like, she wakes up, they get in an altercation, she kicks him in the nuts. And they come to an agreement that he is not a threat to her and that he's just going for a walk in the woods that happens to be next to her.
Right. He's like, just pretend I'm not here. But he really take his duty to, like, protect her seriously because of his friendship with Rosalind.
Yeah. And she is so averse to getting help. Like, she is so willing to self-sacrifice and she wants to do everything by herself. She's independent. She doesn't trust anybody and she does not want help.
Right.
What is that about? It's like major trust issues.
Yeah, it's trust issues, but I don't think anyone's ever actually helped her.
Aside from Rosalind, who then she, in her perception, betrayed her trust, which we later find out was not actually Rosalind.
Rosalind was never told about it.
Yeah.
So they go through this whole thing in the woods. She won't tell him her plan. They've been walking for like 9 days now, and Knox is like, look, bro, I gotta sleep in a bed. I need warm food. I need to wash my clothes. So he's like, there is a little tiny town right up here. It has a call center. I can let the arch son know where I am, or else he's going to send a search party, and then Stokely will absolutely find us. Please, can we stay a night in this town? She does not want to do this. She's like, he will find me. And through great resistance, she agrees, which I think was a good thing. And they go to this town, and it's a town where Knox really trusts everyone there. And they have a night where they get to get their clothes. dry. They get food. And who shows up but Rosalind and Frederick? I was like, yay. And it's so cute because I felt like Rosalind, Frederick, and Knox all knew what was going to happen, but Kaylin was not in on the inside joke here. Like,
Yeah.
everyone knows that Rosalind and Kaylin are in love except for Kaylin.
I mean, yeah, she had her suspicions, but I feel like she just was not completely there.
Well, and she's in survival mode. So when you're in survival mode, you're not thinking about love, right? You're not thinking about emotions. You're thinking about survival. And they all meet up and it's like, so Frederick and Rosalind have like a double room, so like a shared room. And then Knox has his own room and Kaylin has his own room. And they like drink and they all have a good time. They're eating and Kaylin's like so nervous and she's like, we're gonna play cards now. Like the night was like trying to like wind down. She's like, okay, I'll go ask the innkeeper if he has cards so that we can keep playing. And everyone's like, oh my God. And Frederick's like, Kaylin, I'm gonna take your room so you can spend more time with Rosie. And she's like, okay, but I'll be there later. So like, and then he's like, no, girl, like, okay, whatever. If you come, you come. But if not, it's fine. And so finally, when she comes back with the cards, yeah, Frederick and Knox are like, peace out. We got to go. We don't want to be here for this next part. And I really loved the way this scene was written. I thought it was really pure and sweet. And it was also like Rosalind was using her powers to teach Kaylin how to be powerful with her mana. So there's something called like being fully open, and it renders you very vulnerable, but it also lets you wield your mana to like the max of its force, if I understood that correctly.
Yeah. It was, I mean, this is the ultimate peak of like one woman who loves another woman helping her to be vulnerable, open, and powerful.
Yeah.
It's just very special and intimate, and it was beautiful. And also, Rosalind was very clear about Kaylin asks her to kiss her for the very first time while she's in this completely open position. And Rosalind says, I've been waiting for 10 years for you to ask me to do this, but no, I would be taking advantage of you.
I know. That part hit me because Kaylin has only ever been taken advantage of. And Rosie was like, I'm not going to, even though it would be consensual, like I'm not going to, not like this.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't want it to happen like this.
Yeah. It's like if Kaylin had had a couple of drinks.
Right.
Yeah. There was also a conversation that they had where they both were talking. It was kind of when they were, like a little bit awkward with each other. And they were talking about the men sleeping in there and like Frederick coming in the room and Rosalind was like, oh gosh, they better not be expecting me to share this bed with Frederick because he'd be, thrashing around and ew, I don't want a naked man in my bed.
Right.
And it's just so funny because these two are like so averse to a naked man. And a lot of, I guess this conversation happens like when they're young girls too, about to go off, and so many of these young girls will be like, oh my gosh, like you have to tell me what sex is like. Oh my gosh, what is he like? Is he hot? Like, is it big? And they're like, ew, a naked man in my bed. Get it out. I would have to
get it out.
Yeah. And they just want each other. They say like, I'm yours forever. Yeah. And they share this really beautiful night together. And it's so, so special. Kaylin can't help but when Rosalind shows up to like run into her arms, and everything that she felt that Rosalind had wronged her in the past is forgotten. It's just this
The whole world fades away.
yeah, like this indescribable bond.
And they have this really beautiful night together, knowing in the morning that like Kaylin's gonna leave. Kaylin's gonna continue with her plan, and she's like, "You're not gonna stop me. Like, I have to do it." We find out her plan is to like leave the country, basically, like to basically disappear. And Rosalind, through like gritted teeth, is like, "I'm not gonna be able to stop her." So like, okay, you know.
Yeah.
So in the morning, she leaves. Knox goes with her, and they set off on this next part of their plan. But before we get there, I want to talk about the girls at school really quickly because it has one of my cute little underlinings that I want to read because I was like, this is one of the most romantic things I've ever read written. And so there's a point in the book where we flash back and we get Rosalind and Kaylin at school. And at that time, it's Amelia and what is Rosie's name?
Keely.
Keely, yes. So they're just Amelia and Keely. And they're these two little girls, these two vessels who are young and at school. And I just think it's so sweet. And I am seeing here that it is the revered, not reverend. Jesus Christ, I can't read. But, you know, they get into these altercations at school. And we always find that Keely, aka Rosie, is the one who protects Kaylin. And I think this is why Kaylin was so shocked when she didn't come to protect her later on, or when she received it, right? But you know, they the part I want to talk about is at their graduation, where they have to like leave each other, and Kaylin says to Rosie, "Oh, and by the way, the reason they get to pick their own names once they become like vessels," and Rosalind kind of gave Kaylin her name from this flower that they like that she gave her a calendula flower, and that's why she picked her name. And everyone thought it was so weird, but she was like, "Yeah, but every time someone says my name, I'm going to be reminded of you." And I thought that was
which is so heart melting. Oh my gosh,
so cute. So now they're at graduation and they're about to leave each other, and Kaylin says to her, like, "Don't forget me. You're going to go to the Capitol and meet all these amazing people. Please don't forget me." And it says, Rosalind pulled away enough to cup her cheeks and look into her eyes. "Hey, don't say that. You need to know that there is no one in this world like you, Millie." She smiled. "Sorry, Kaylin. I could meet every single person in every single colony, then travel the world and meet every person on every continent. I could put them all together, and everything they would have to offer could not compare to one day spent with you. There is nothing that could come between us. Do you hear me? Nothing." And I think that was so important for Kaylin to hear. And I think she truly believed it. And then you see the fruition of that promise when Rosie is like, does everything to like move mountains to find Kaylin and save her from Stokely. And I was just like, oh, I'm dead. I love these two.
the love of these two women is so strong. I'm so curious about what happened while they were in school, of like how it morphed from friendship into more, because I mean, at some point it says that so many years ago, when touching Rosie had stopped making sense, it had stopped being casual contact between two friends. It had morphed into ... more.
Yeah.
And so I am just really wanting to know what happened.
I don't think it was a physical morphine into more. I think it was, oh, my feelings are different.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really don't think it was like a, like a physical fruition of their relationship becoming more. I think it was just the recognizing of my emotions are not friend emotions. Like, I truly love this person type of reckoning, you know?
Yeah. I mean, they definitely had never kissed.
Yeah.
And Kaylin, up until she had sex with Rosalind, had never had consensual sex before, and she didn't know that you were supposed to get pleasure out of sex. Like when she had sex with Rosie, she said, this is how it's supposed to feel?
Yeah. I think that's a really interesting commentary on, I don't want to say heterosexuality, but like women when it comes to sex sometimes with men, like, and especially like maybe not now because we've had like a huge sexual awakening within our culture, but I do think that that was kind of how a lot of women felt a long time ago. And I don't even want to say a long time ago because I'm sure it's how a lot of women still feel. It's like, I don't get enjoyment out of sex. It's a duty I have to do. And I didn't know you were supposed to like have pleasure in it. You know, I think that's a very common experience for a lot of women.
So sad.
I know. So okay, going back to the non-romantic part here. Knox and Kaylin are on their journey to get out of the country. And Knox is like, I promised Rosie I would protect you, so I'm coming. But lo and behold, Stokely finds them.
Ugh. This man is the bane of my existence.
He's the worst. The worst. And it's really interesting because for a split second, I was like, wait a second, Knox, what's happening here?
Yeah. Oh, wait, before we talk about Stokely getting there, can we talk about the conversation between Knox and Kaylin as they walk through the woods about the butterfly?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Okay, so Kaylin finally opens up to Knox for the first time because she's been she's been kind of an asshole to him this whole time. Like every time he stops to pee, she's been running faster so that he has to like run to catch up with her. She finally opens up to him and tells him this story about how when she was a kid, she saw this wooden butterfly at a market that she fell in love with and she just had to have. And she did all of these jobs and chores and sold things that she had just to get enough tokens to be able to go buy it. And it was her prized possession, and she hung it above her bed and looked at it, and like she felt like there was true beauty when she was looking at it. And then one day her brother just got so angry that he splintered it into a million pieces. And later he felt bad, but the damage had been done and there was nothing that you could do. And
of Little Women, when Amy burns Joe's book.
Ugh.
And I think that like really paralleled. She's like, she felt bad later, but like the damage was done. And then Caitlin said, this is the reason I don't like want things anymore. This is the reason I don't possess things anymore, is because it'll always be broken.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to read this. It's so beautiful. He says, Kaylin, Rosalind isn't made of wood. No, you're right. She's made of flesh and blood and bone and is infinitely more breakable than a wooden toy. Rosalind is a perfect cool day walking through the forest with the sun dappling through the leaves, then a breath whispers through the trees and fills you with unexplainable ease. Aside from the fact that I would sooner die than see harm come to her, she matters to so many other people in this world beyond me. How could I ever be so selfish as to claim her as my own, when I know what kind of monster hunts me? He wouldn't just snap off her wings. Stokely would unmake everything that makes her special. He would break her in ways she would never recover from. How could I ever do that to someone that I love? How could I ever misuse her, especially after... It's so... My heart breaks for her.
No, because it's like they're both trying to protect each other.
And just this way that she views Rosalind is stunning, beautiful. Like, oh, to be loved that way is just My heart aches.
I know. It's so beautiful. I love women.
Yeah. Okay, so this horrible man,
Fine.
Stokely, shows up.
Yes. And Knox plays it off like he's trying to be on Stokely's side. He like takes his knife and like puts it to Kaylin's throat, who's in like absolute shock and fear. And the good thing is Knox is able to kind of get a signal to her, like, hey, like, just go with it, right? But Knox is like a really good actor too, though. And I'm just like, I really hope he's on her side, which I never doubted, honestly. But it was like scary to see him like call her a bitch and like, really play into this so that Stokely would believe him. And he's like, yeah, like she's so horrible. I can't believe I had to spend this much time with her, blah, blah, blah. And Stokely's like, yeah, I hate her too. Blah, blah, blah.
Classic case of narcissism that Stokely just believed Knox.
Yeah, I know. And then so Knox is like, okay, on 3, run. And the thing about Stokely is like he's a mana wielder himself, and he's been sucking mana from his previous partners and from Kaylin, and like he can use it in this like really interesting way, and he's so fast and he's so strong, and that's why Kaylin like couldn't get away from him, right? And so on 3 she does run, and Knox and Stokely battle it out. And it's so scary.
Yeah, so he like smashes Knox's skull in and stabs him, and he looks dead. He looks real dead. But Knox keeps yelling, run, run at Kaylin, and she does. And this is like so sad because she does not want to leave him, but she has to. And she just keeps running and running and running and running away until she finally. And so, and Stokely thinks this is hilarious. He is like, this is such a fun game of cat and mouse. I'm going to have to incorporate this into our weekly routine. Where he's like, this would be a fun weekly game to make her run for her life through the woods.
It was
what the fuck, dude?
It was maniacal. It was so scary. Finally, she's been running for hours, and she comes to this like little like sanctuary looking little town called, what is it called? The Onus House? Something like that. But she knocks on the door and she's like, sanctuary, sanctuary. And the good thing about this house is that this is a place where like it's kind of like used up vessels go to like kind of retire. And there's this woman, her name's Sister Matilda, and she takes care of her. But Kaylin is like very sus about it because she's like, I shouldn't have been able to sleep 36 hours without Stokely finding me. And Sister Matilda is like, oh, he found you, but he like hates it here. And we made him go away, And I was like, what the fuck is this place? I'm so confused. And then we get the backstory.
Mm-hmm. So this is where one of his former bonded partners is residing, the one that he completely burned out. Her name is Zoya. And there's this really weird phenomena that's happening where all of the burned out vessels that are living here have sort of been like activated, roused. They're saying she's here. And it seems like they all have recognized Kaylin's presence and they want something from her. But Sister Matilda, who runs the place, doesn't know what's going on. Kaylin doesn't know what's going on. And none of these former vessels have the means to really communicate like what it is that they're talking about.
Yeah.
So this is a very odd thing that's going on. But anyway, so Stokely like continues his pursuit, trying to get Kaylin out of there. And he ends up kidnapping Nell and showing up and using her as a bargaining tool to get her to sacrifice herself to come back out. And this is when we find out that Nell is like a third person in their bonded pair.
She's the third thing.
Yeah, the secret third thing here, by way of she was conceived in the river at the same time that Kaylin was being consecrated, and so some of her mana went downstream while her parents were doing the dirty, and it got in there and got into her conception.
Yeah.
And so she was made with some of Kaylin's mana, which is why, I mean, she holds their mana. So she's part of what Stokely is calling their family.
Ugh.
And she's this young girl now who's also been kidnapped by Stokely. And so Kaylin gives herself over to Brother Stokely in order to try and ease the life of Nell, because Stokely threatens that Nell is going to have a horrible time unless you come and make it a little bit easier for her.
Right.
And she knows that he's threatening like horrific violence against Nell. Right. And she won't just like let that happen, because the entire reason that she escaped in the first place was to be able to expose him so that it wouldn't keep happening to her or any other woman after he killed her or burned her out.
Right. And
because she knew that was her fate.
Who shows up to save Kaylin but Rosalind and Frederick, but he's not very much of a help. But Rosie shows up, and honestly, like, it sucks because she's no match for Stokely, and he just breaks her fucking leg like immediately. But but what I thought was really cool, and this actually reminded me of Frozen 1. I'm gonna go to my notes here, where it's like Elsa came to save Anna, but Anna ended up saving herself. And or whatever, you know what I'm saying. Because Rosalind like can't do anything. She's rendered powerless, basically. And Stokely goes, well, and then Stokely's trying to hurt Kaylin, and who comes up behind with Rosalind's knife but Nell, and starts stabbing Stokely. So then Stokely turns his wrath to Nell, and Kaylin is just like, okay, like here it is. And she like opens fully. She like connects with the earth and the roots and the trees, and like pulls Stokely prostrate and like holds him with all her power enough to like get away. But like instead of getting away, she like Rosie's like, take your power back. Take your power back. And she starts taking the mana from Stokely that he's stolen, but it doesn't stop. She doesn't know how to stop it. So she ends up taking like almost all of Stokely's power. And in doing that, she's taking the stolen power from Zolia. She's taking the stolen power from the other vessel that he killed. And it's like, in taking all his power, it nearly kills her.
Mm-hmm. And the only reason she doesn't die is because Rosalind walks through the barrier of this like storm that's built around her and starts using her own mana to work within her and start taking stuff out and calm the storm, and that almost kills her. But she's willing to sacrifice. She knows that she might die doing this, but she's willing to sacrifice her own life if it means saving Kaylin, which is just like the ultimate sacrifice there. And poor Frederick too, watching like his best friend and his bonded partner do this with no way to stop it, and just knowing that like he has to accept the choice that she's made. That is so painful to know that there's all of these different dynamics going on.
Yeah.
I personally think Kaylin should have just drawn and quartered him with the trees.
That's what I was thinking. I was literally thinking drawn and quartered. I was like, pull him apart. Rip that man apart.
Yeah, because what's he gonna do then? Nothing. Nothing. Not a thing.
I was right there with you. I was like, rip his limbs off.
So once this happens, they get everybody safely to a healer's clinic, but then that little Jin girl comes and takes Stokely down and drags him into the woods. So we don't know if he's alive. Probably.
We find out he's alive.
We do?
Yeah.
Oh.
Pretty sure, yeah. Because, yeah, they said, like, Jin came. And, yeah, she did say, like, oh, maybe he's dead in the woods. But there's no way, like.
Yeah, I think, like, for the sequel,
She's a
he
healer,
must be alive.
remember?
Yeah.
But we also find out that Knox is alive and at that same time. And I was like, oh my God, thank God. So everyone is alive. And everyone is happy, but also not, because there's 2 more books in this series. And the end scene is where Kaylin comes back to the Omis house and meets up with Zolia, who is the vessel that Stokely stole her power from, and she gives her power, her mana, back to her. And she's like, I don't know how I'm doing this, but I'm gonna find out why. So now we're gonna like get the story of like why and how this is all happening.
Something else that I think that we should talk about is the insane lengths that Kaylin had to go to. Like, this whole book is born out of this man is abusing her so severely that she's literally like having to disappear herself out of the country because she's already taken this up to the highest level of power that she possibly can. And not only did they ignore it and bury it, but they also like did other really shady stuff to make it seem illegitimate and protect him over her. And she isn't even the first one that this has happened to, and I'm sure it's not the first time that he's been reported. Like, he's literally murdered a girl before and completely burned out someone else, and Sister Matilda has also tried to take it up with the powers that be. So, like, he's a known serious danger and problem, like danger to society, and people have protected him and not like the many victims that he's had. And she is having to go to such great lengths to not only protect herself but to protect future women, and this is putting herself in danger and other people in danger. And this is like such an important theme of this book. I think that if people were to, it's not just believe women, because I'm sure that they believe her. I'm sure that everybody involved is aware and believes that Brother Stokely is capable of and has committed these acts.
Right.
But is also willing to follow through and do what it takes to remove people who act like this from positions of power.
Yeah.
No matter what it does to like their organization.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And to be willing to uphold like the values and the real merit of what the organization is, and not let something as horrific and horrendous as assault and abuse and violence bring it down. Mm-hmm. So I just think that is a really important note, because it expands further than believing the women, and it goes into like actual action, which I think that our culture has a real problem with. And then also just like making the lives of the women who come forward hell.
Yeah. Because she comes forward, takes all this monumentous effort, and then she's not believed, and she has to go right back with him, back to the torture, back to the abuse that's going to be even worse. because now she's spoken about it and it's going to enrage him, you know? And I just found it so interesting, the juxtaposition of Knox and Frederick to the men in power, because like in the book it says like Knox listened to him talk to Nell or talk to Kaylin for 1 minute and knew everything was true,
Yeah.
you know? And it's like, it's so simple. It's right there. It's right in front of your face.
Mm-hmm.
And that any person, male or female, like deserves protection.
Yeah.
I think that's why Knox went to such lengths, almost dying to protect her, because not only is it a sworn duty, but it's also just the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you found
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I think this book was phenomenal. I would recommend it to anybody who's into like post-apocalyptic, fantasy, sapphic, adventure, really like any of the above. It's just a very, very good book.
Agreed.
I can't wait for books 2 and 3, and I really hope that Samantha Jo will come talk to us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
What do you have any predictions for book 2?
I want a little more spice.
Okay.
Spice. I want a little more like time with Rosie and Kaylin like together.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see them adventure outside of their country to like see what's going on in the other parts of the world. I want a meeting with the head of the First Order. I think his name's Marcus. I can't remember. Something like that. I want a meeting with him. I want Stokely to die. I want to hear more about that resistance group that Jin's a part of. Yeah, I have a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, what's next on our docket here while we await books 2 and 3?
Well, we're going to read American in Paris. So get reading, everyone. That's our next book by Margaret Vandenberg. It's the prequel to Craze, which we covered on the podcast. And until we finish that, you'll probably hear some L-Word episodes, maybe a movie.
Yes, can't wait.
Yeah.
We have an interview with a director of a sapphic film coming up soon.
That too.
Yes, and then we have another book by another author that's coming out soon that we will tell you more about as the time comes. I think that's more in July. Yeah, I'm excited. I cannot wait to discuss all these things with you guys, and hopefully we'll get an interview with Samantha Jo on the books.
That's right. Thank you guys for joining us. We love you.
Love you guys. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.